The Airbus A320 went off course while trying to land on runway 12. Instead of turning left towards the runway, the plane flew straight towards the high Margalla Hills. The co-pilot shouted,
"The hills are ahead, turn left, turn left."
The alarms were sounding, and the co-pilot was demanding that the captain change course immediately.
Terrain, terrain.
July 28, 2010. Jinnah International Airport, Karachi, Pakistan. Airblue Flight 202 was preparing to begin its scheduled flight to Benazir Bhutto International Airport, Islamabad, Pakistan. There were 146 passengers and 6 crew members on board. The flight command was Pervez Iqbal Chaudhry. He is 61 years old. He had 27,497 hours of flying experience, including 1,060 hours on Airbus A320 plane. The co-pilot was Captain Muntahib Ahmed, 34 years. He was a former F-16 pilot in the Pakistan Air Force. He had 1,837 hours of flying experience, including 286 hours on Airbus A320 plane. The plane was an Airbus A321. The plane was built in 2000, and has flown more than 34,000 hours, through 13,500 flights. The flight left Karachi for its destination in Islamabad. The captain took control of the aircraft, while the co-pilot handled lookouts. The plane began to rise at the same time that the captain began talking to the co-pilot and began to test his level of knowledge, and began to brag about himself and his experience. During that conversation, the captain had some harsh and arrogant words to the co-pilot and criticized him for his inexperience. The captain asked the co-pilot a lot of questions, and the co-pilot tried to answer them. After that, the captain began giving him advice. This continued at intervals until an hour after takeoff. This behavior of the captain caused the co-pilot to remain calm for the rest of the flight, and he became anxious and lost a lot of confidence in himself. Based on that conversation, it is easy to assume that the co-pilot will no longer be able to confront the captain about any possible mistakes he may make during the flight. Flight 202 was 155 miles from Islamabad, flying at the flight level 330. The air traffic controller in Islamabad contacted the pilots and informed them that the landing runway available to them in Islamabad was runway number 12. At this time it was raining heavily in Islamabad. Visibility decreased to 3.5 kilometers. Due to low visibility and heavy clouds, the captain was required to perform a visual turn around runway 12. The captain prepared himself for a visual turn. To perform a visual approach on runway 12, pilots must keep their eyes on the runway at all times and continuously. If they lose eye contact at any point, they should turn around and try again. Because of the hills in Islamabad, the airport's landing instructions state that, if visual contact with the runway is lost, the aircraft must turn 45 degrees to the right and maintain that direction for 30 seconds. Immediately after that, the plane should turn left and fly parallel to the runway. After the aircraft passes the threshold of runway 12, the crew should wait 20 seconds and then turn left 90 degrees, then turn left again to align with runway 12. But on that flight, the captain did not comply with this, relying on his experience in landing in Islamabad, and asked the co-pilot to use 4 landing points that were not authorized to be used in such weather conditions. Because of the way the captain spoke to the co-pilot at the beginning of the flight, the co-pilot could not express his objection to the captain's decision. At that moment, Flight 202 began its descent. The co-pilot asked the airport control tower to use the right lane to land to runway 12. The control tower replied that the right lane was not available at the moment due to low clouds. At this time, the plane was flying at 4,300 feet. The tower asked the crew to descend to 3,900 feet, then turn left to use the left lane to land on runway 12. The autopilot stabilized the aircraft at the desired altitude. The crew returned again to ask the air traffic controller about the possibility of using the right lane for landing. He replied that the direction of the wind prevented landing on the right lane, and that only the left lane was available to use for landing on runway 12. It was raining heavily, and the clouds began to descend below the minimum permissible altitude. The runway became blurred in the eyes of the pilots due to foggy weather and rain. The captain wanted to descend to 2,000 feet so he could see the runway again, but he was reminded by the co-pilot not to do so, because the minimum landing altitude in Islamabad without a collision with the surrounding hills was 2,500 feet. The captain adjusted the plane's altitude, setting it at the minimum level at 2,500 feet. The captain learned that Pakistan Airlines Flight 356 had landed safely a short time ago in the same weather conditions. This put him under pressure, and he decided to land in Islamabad under any circumstances. Visual visibility was again interrupted with the runway due to the accumulation of clouds, which required stopping the right turn towards the runway without any visual contact with the ground. Nevertheless, the captain ordered the autopilot to turn right, then ordered the autopilot to descend to 2,300 feet. The captain thus violated minimum altitude rules set at 2,500 feet. At the same time, the air traffic controller suggested that he enter a waiting mode and wait for the weather to improve, but the captain mocked what the controller was saying. Captain.
Let him say whatever he wants to say.
Co-pilot.
Okay, sir, but can you see the runway?
Captain.
Yes, I know where it is, don't worry.
Aircraft wishing to land must remain within the safe zone of the airport, which is within 8 kilometers around the runway. Instead of using the circular route during the turn, the captain told the co-pilot that they would fly to route point 11, which was located outside the safe zone. The captain then ordered a 300-degree left turn via autopilot. If the crew had been following standard procedures, they should have turned to the correct destination by now. But due to incorrect procedures, they were now already more than 9 kilometers away from the runway, outside the safe zone, flying below the minimum permitted altitude. At this time, the aircraft was flying 1 mile to the south within the restricted area. The air traffic controller ordered them to turn left to avoid the no-fly zone. He then asked the crew whether they could see the airport or not. The crew did not answer the question, but the co-pilot asked the captain and said to him,
What should I tell him, sir?
This question showed that the crew at this time was not able to see the runway, but the co-pilot was asking whether he was going to tell the truth or not. The crew then informed the air traffic controller that they were seeing the airport. The captain reset the autopilot to nav mode in order for the autopilot to return the aircraft toward the initial point of the programmed course, at course point 11. This point is located 13 kilometers northwest of the runway, and it is clear that the captain at this time had lost his way, and no longer knew his exact location, and despite that, he continued trying to land. Little did the crew know that if they tried to fly to point 11 at their current altitude of 2,300 feet, they would hit the ridge before arriving. Co-pilot:
Sir, it seems that the ground is high here. Sir, there is terrain in front of us. Turn left immediately.
Captain:
Okay, we're heading left.
The plane was not responding because it was in nav mode, and was flying directly toward waypoint 11. In an attempt to make the plane turn left, the captain pulled the steering handle, but the nav mode that the captain had previously set prevented this. After the captain realized that he had forgotten to turn off the auto navigation mode, he finally pulled the handle to turn it off. Unfortunately, while the confused captain was trying to turn left, he turned the steering wheel so hard that the plane made a full turn and was turning back to the right. Because of this, the plane, without the knowledge of the crew, took a direct path to the right towards the Margalla Hills. Co-pilot:
Sir, turn left, pull.
The captain quickly changed the set altitude to 3,700 feet. Then he moved the thrust lever fully forward, and the plane began to climb while turning right. Co-pilot:
Pull, sir, pull.
The captain continued to turn the plane's rudder to the left, but because he was only reducing the set direction to 0 degrees, the autopilot continued to turn the plane to the right. Captain:
Why doesn't the plane turn left?
Co-pilot:
It looks like it's on autopilot, sir, autopilot.
The captain quickly disconnected the autopilot and began turning the plane to the left manually. The captain turned the plane to the left manually using a side turn, which caused the plane to turn at an angle of 52 degrees to the left, at the same time that the nose of the plane pitched downward. The plane descended and increased speed, so the automatic propulsion system commanded the engines to reduce speed, to maintain the airspeed with the target speed. The plane began descending at a high rate of 3,000 feet per minute. The captain quickly tried to get the plane up. Unfortunately, time had run out. The plane hit the hills and crashed 9 miles northeast of Benazir Bhutto International Airport, while attempting to land on runway 12. All 152 people on board were killed as a direct result of the violent collision. The investigation was conducted by the Civil Aviation Authority of Pakistan in cooperation with Airbus. The final report was released in November 2011. According to investigators, a lack of professionalism by the crew, failure to follow standard landing instructions, and poor weather conditions were the main factors in this accident. The report also indicated that the captain ignored or did not respond properly to several air traffic controller directives, as well as the automatic terrain warning systems located on the plane. The report also stated that the co-pilot dealt with the captain's erroneous actions negatively, after the captain spoke to him in a harsh and arrogant tone on several occasions. Also, in the captain's determination to land in inclement weather, the crew committed serious violations of procedures and flight regulation violations, which placed the plane in an unsafe condition, over dangerous terrain at low altitude. Thanks for watching. We are honored by your opinion and support in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe to the Flight X channel, and activate the notification bell to receive all new updates. See you soon in a new episode. Bye.